I looked out at their little faces. They would bear the brunt of it all. These kids were going to grow up in an idyllic world and be thrown into an apocalyptic nightmare. They were the generation that would experience the sixth extinction event.
Hello and welcome back to Rehydrate. This season we'll be reading and discussing Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary. This is Season 10, Episode 1, Astrophage, covering chapters 1 to 7. The hosts have varying levels of knowledge of this book. My name is Dan, and I have only read up to this part of the book, and I have not read any of other Andy Weir's books, and I haven't even watched The Martian.
Nice. Good to have you back, Dan. I'm Talia. I have read, or rather listened to, the audiobook, which I think is maybe distinctive for Hail Mary. And I've read The Martian, and I'm now rereading with the podcast in a physical book.
My name is Priya, and it's so good to be back with you guys. And I have read or listened to the audiobook of Project Hail Mary a few years ago, and I have also read The Martian and watched the movie. And this is a reread for me.
Andy Weir does have other books, at least one other book, but these are by far the most popular ones.
Cool. Well, yeah, it's great to be back. It's been about a year, I think, since we did the last one. So we just talked about the Three Body Show. So we're back, and we all picked this book, Project Hail Mary, partly because the movie is coming out kind of soon. I actually don't know exactly when, but I know the trailer's out there, and we watched that. And I thought it'd be a good time to kind of discuss it. And it seems to be a fan favorite among a lot of people, and really popular. So I think it's I've always meant to read it. So now's a good time as any. For the past year, I haven't really read anything. I was more focused on schoolwork for myself. I was finishing up my degree, so I spent a lot of time reading technical books.
Good job.
Yeah, I watched a lot of TV shows. Let's see, Severance is awesome. Everyone should watch that. We should do a whole podcast on Severance, I think. But I think that's been the highlight of my watching experience for the past year. How about you? How about you, Talia? What have you been doing?
Well, congratulations on finishing school. Quite a feat. I just finished reading Cloud Atlas, which I really enjoyed, and I'm now watching the movie for Cloud Atlas. I have been doing a little bit of writing, so that's all on my Substack, which is Double Diction. But I look forward to delving into something that's maybe a little bit more topical. I know a lot of people like you, Dan, are reading this book because the movie's coming out, and rather than just delving into our favorites from the past, it's sort of interesting to sort of be pushed because something's going to be made into a major film with support from big producers and sort of be on that wave. How about you, Priya?
For the past year, I had to remember what I've been doing, even though I've been doing something very consistently, which is working on a sci-fi book, or at this point, it's like a mix between sci-fi and speculative fiction. So I am now about like 84,000 words into the manuscript, and that's like about, I don't know, like over 300 pages, double spaced. But yeah, that's taken up a larger part of my past year. And so reading, which I was doing a lot of before that, kind of slowed down a little bit for me. So like if I'm trying to remember what I've been reading recently, I can hardly remember because everything feels like a little bit of a blur. But it's so exciting to hear that you're also writing, Talia. I'd love to find out more about that later. But so I was happy to reread Project Hail Mary because I'm excited for the movie, and who doesn't want to see Ryan Gosling go back out into space? So yeah, that should be exciting.
Yeah, likewise. I'm so excited to hear that you're so far deep into a manuscript that's speculative fiction or maybe speculative fact, depending on how the world goes. I would love to read more. Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a future season of Rehydrate. Like that'd be very exciting.
It'll all come back full circle.
You think you don't like listening to the sound of your own voice? Wait until we're close reading thousands of your words.
Right.
Oh my god. Suddenly, yeah, like my hands are clammy.
Did you want to talk about your bookstagram as well?
Oh yeah. Another exciting thing is that in the past year, I joined the Bookstagram community, and made tons of new friends from there, and I've had just the best time connecting with like readers and writers and learning from them, and just like what I get to do on this podcast, talking with you guys about like the books that we read. I feel like I do that now like on an almost daily basis with people on Bookstagram, so that's been really fun, and it's also kind of like broadened my horizons in so many different ways. So I mean, if anybody's a reader and wants to tap into like the best little corner of the internet, Bookstagram is really the place to be. Everyone is so nice there.
It sounds way better than the Three Body Reddit, which I'm still on, and still very annoyed by everyone who thinks Wade's so awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would say the tones and behavior of people on Bookstagram is far more I don't know, civil. And that's probably because there's less anonymity there, because I mean, some people can still be anonymous on Bookstagram, but like on Reddit, you're just a name, right?
Yeah.
The internet, nobody knows your dog. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's cool. It sounds like that'd be pretty seamless to go between your Bookstagram horizons and communities and then back on Rehydrate. So you're probably the least rusty of us all.
You would think that, but we will find out by the end of this podcast.
But I know that you did this wonderful summary of the first like part of Hail Mary. Like Dan said, we decided to cut it up into 4 parts and read the first 7 chapters. You want to get into the book?
So we're going to summarize now chapters 1 through the end of 7 of Project Hail Mary. So the story begins with a man waking up from a coma with probes and tubes attached to him. He is disoriented, unable to recall who he is or where he is. He's surrounded by unfamiliar technology. A robot is assessing his cognitive state with a sequence of simple questions, and a set of robotic arms is assessing his physical state. There are also 2 dead bodies in the room. He gets out of bed, triggering both the medical equipment and a flashback. In his memory, he's in a diner checking an email from Dr. Petrova. The email describes a strange solar anomaly, an infrared line from the sun to Venus. Back in the present, he determines that he isn't on Earth by calculating the gravity in the room. The narrative continues to flip back and forth between flashbacks and the present situation over the course of the next few chapters. He remembers that Earth is facing an existential crisis caused by a mysterious microorganism that feeds on solar energy. This is causing the sun to lose luminosity, which will cause global temperatures to drop, resulting in natural disasters that eventually lead to human extinction. He also remembers that he was a science teacher named Ryland Grace. As an academic in molecular biology, his work on extremophiles had led him to claim that life can exist without water, or theorize at least. He ended up leaving academia after being criticized for it. He is then recruited by Eva Stratt to study the microorganism, which he names Astrophage, which translates to star eater. He finds that this organism stores energy and emits infrared light when moving. Scientists also notice another anomaly. Tau Ceti, a star nearby, is mysteriously unaffected by Astrophage. Though Ryland initially is reluctant to be a part of this mission, he changes his mind upon realizing the impact this crisis will have on his students' futures. He insists upon studying Astrophage further and discovers how to make it reproduce. Scientists determine that they can use it as fuel to make interstellar travel possible. The Project Hail Mary mission is a last-ditch international interstellar expedition to Tau Ceti to figure out why it's immune, and if that knowledge can save Earth. To avoid panic or psychological breakdowns, the crew was put into a medically induced coma so that they could sleep en route. The 3 members were selected on the basis of having a coma resistance gene complex. Back in the present, Ryland realizes he's alone, he's the only survivor, as his 2 other crew members have died from complications, possibly infection or failures related to the robotic caretaker, and that due to time dilation and relativity, any information he sends back to Earth will take years to arrive. As he continues exploring the ship, Piecing together his role, checking systems, reviewing the mission goals, he notices that Tau Ceti has its own Petrova line, meaning it may not be immune after all. Right at the end of part 1, he notices a presence nearby. The second ship is out there. He determines it is non-human and attempting to make contact with him. It sends out a cylinder for him to retrieve. Upon retrieval, he notices it is extremely hot to the touch and has a strong smell of ammonia. The chapter ends with the realization that he has made first contact with intelligent alien life.
Again, just a refresher of his memory. Like, I haven't read this at all, but I haven't read anything past this, and you guys have both read the entire thing before. So, initial impressions are kind of weird because you guys already know what's going to happen. But I guess I'll go first in that. My initial thoughts about this is like I was really intrigued. I thought the writing was really interesting. Like, I like the characters. Like it may be like a little bit slow. It took a little while to get to the point, but I think that I think that was like sort of the point of the whole thing of like how he structured it, right? Like he was like gradually waking up, gradually remembering things. It seemed a little convenient that he was like able to like kind of pull memories, like the kind of on demand there. But I think that's fine. Like the twists I think were really interesting, and like the science, like while it's not as deep as like remembers her past or everything, is like it was like it was believable enough, and it was like an interesting premise, of like sort of like a world, and it's not even like world ending, but I mean I guess it's technically a world ending, but it's like in a very like slow a slow way, like an interesting way, rather than just like the earth blowing up or something, right? Where it's like, oh, it's going to gradually get colder, and like 10 degrees doesn't seem like a big deal, but actually like it's a huge deal that it's going to kind of destroy the whole planet. To him, like the like testing the astrophage and like kind of understanding stuff, and like the people running experiments on it with different ways. I think it was really interesting to me, and to me, it was well written, and then the fact that like I cared. I don't want to say I cared about the characters, but like I was interested enough to keep reading about them. Not only like the main character, but like the head. I forgot her name already, but what's her name?
You prove a point that none of the characters matter at all. They're merely convenient.
Well, I wouldn't say that they matter. I just remember the name, like the head of like the agency,
Strat?
like Strat. Yeah. Start with an S. I remember.
Machina for authority.
yeah, the nicer version of Wade for this one, and of course, like because like that's all I think about is Three Body Problem, is like how this is like very could be similar to that, and like she's like a Wade like character, but not as cruel or authoritarian as him, or genocidal, or like just sociopath. Anyway,
which just reminded me that we didn't do our cast of characters.
Oh, true.
Should we have?
We probably should have. I mean, we have the two major ones, right? And then we have a couple like
the two
characters.
Dead ones.
Like I think.
I don't think we should on principle, because again, I don't think that these characters get any respect in the book, but we certainly can.
I mean, I feel like the main character, he has like he has a very defined personality already. He's not super serious. He doesn't feel like he's like earned this position to like where he's at. He seems really invested in his kids, which I think was interesting. I like the whole like reveal about like him like thinking like, oh, I need to do it for my kid. Like, do I have a kid? It's like, oh no, it's like my kid's kid. Like the kids that I'm teaching are my kids. I thought that was good, and like it kind of like revealed his personality a bit. And he's like really curious about like how the stuff works, and like really diligent about doing it. But like he never thinks he's like really good at it. He's just like kind of like really diligent about kind of discovering this stuff. Yeah, I have a hard time saying it's like there's no defined characters. I think those two defined characters. Like I think the lady, like she's like yeah, maybe like a little bit too much. Yeah, like you said, Deus Machina, right? Like she can kind of do anything and like has ultimate authority over everything somehow in a very short amount of time. But it's a world extinction event, I guess.
Yeah, the side characters are a little bit of a caricature of like
Mhm.
It's the forces that, or the powers that be, that set all of this into motion. So you have, you have your two dead characters, who are referred to by name, but like I can't even remember their names. And then you
One of them
have
was Yao, and the other one was like some Russian name. I can't remember.
Ilyukna.
Yeah,
Her name was Ilyukna. But
I
see,
couldn't even
like they
pronounce
didn't
it.
even make it into the summary.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're familiar with The Martian, his more popular work that was already made into a major motion picture, there's Mark Watson, the main male protagonist. Like, we learn that he's an unlikely character for this mission because he's only a botanist and yet needs to do all these scientific roles that are outside of his exact field. And we learn that he's extremely hardworking and tenacious and charismatic. And to me, both when I heard this the first time and when I read it, I'm like, okay, so we have the exact same main character.
Yeah,
And
we do. We really do. Yep.
nothing, and then some peripherals to make the plot move along.
I wouldn't have even complained if they recast Matt Damon in this role. Like it would have just worked.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that. This same guy who once went to Mars now has to get catapulted up into the Hail Mary. I'm not sure.
He has experience. I mean, it's on his CV. He's figured out his way out of Mars, so now he can go back and fix this problem too. Should be a running series.
But these characters, they also like universally have this chip on their shoulder, right? Of like, I'm only a botanist, or like high school science teachers know that. Tal said he's 12 light years away. Well, I'm a high school science teacher. I'm like, you could just tell me it's 12, like I wasn't gonna question like how could a lowly person like you know that?
Yeah, I had a little bit of hard time believing that he just happened to know all this information. Like I never learned anything about Tau Ceti in high school. Like he just happens to be like the greatest science teacher ever and like just know all this information. But like he also had a background in academia, so like maybe it's not that outside the realm of possibility. But I mean, yeah, I guess maybe a little convenient.
He's a disillusioned academic. So what's happened is he was on his path to greatness, but what happened was academia sucks. So he was derailed off of his path and he decided to leave because he got grumpy because everyone said that, I guess he wrote a paper, right, about
And I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you dang kids.
yeah, dang academics.
Yeah, it was about how water is like not
Not essential.
not essential to life, except on Earth it happens to be, right? But like on other places it doesn't need necessarily.
Not a sine qua non for life is his thesis, yeah.
Which is pretty cool because then he is proven wrong. Because Astrophage
Right.
does in fact have water inside of it.
Liquid water.
Yes, because it's able to maintain its internal temperature regardless of the external temperature, which is pretty cool. I thought that these concepts are really cool. So, like, plausibility aside, like the political realism of the scenario, I just kind of set that aside. Like, I have actually been thinking recently about, what kinds of things can you suspend your disbelief for in a story versus where it starts to become a problem, where you're trying to present too many scenarios that feel implausible. To what extent can you expect your reader or your audience to suspend their disbelief? And I feel like he strikes a pretty good balance in this book where he manages to keep you with the story even though you start to believe that a lot of the pieces that came together to make this scenario happen could not have happened in real life. Like, so for example, the situation where Strat claims that we have to put you all in a medically induced coma because if we don't, then you're all going to kill each other because you're on a suicide mission and just these cramped quarters will make you want to kill each other. This is such a strategic like plot device to explain why he's waking up disoriented in the beginning of the book, because I wondered to myself, would they really kill themselves if they're on a suicide mission? So yeah.
And I
Um,
think exactly things like that my main grumble with Andy Weir's writing is he makes these really adamant defenses, which I don't think are
mm,
necessary, and then make me question the defended concept when otherwise I probably would have suspended disbelief. Like
that's
Dan
true,
just said,
actually.
yeah, if you're saying like Tau said he's 12 light years away. I know I'm a high school science teacher. Now you're making me think, wait, did I learn anything about that in high school science? As opposed to just, oh, I guess that character knows that. And so it would have been, I think, really, really understandable and rang of truth if it was like an administrative decision that your boss's boss's boss made to put everyone in a coma. And like, oh, yeah, another bad corporate decision, as opposed to like it's this really dramatic scene where she's drinking alcohol and saying like the fate of the world's in my hands. They need to be in a coma or else they'll kill each other. It's like, well, I don't know if that's true. Whereas if it had just been like, yeah, sorry, it's going to save money. That's what we're doing. Like, all right, so here we are.
Yeah, or come up with a different reason for why they need to be in a coma.
Another
Because
reason. Yeah.
yeah, a different reason because you're you're saying that they might kill each other because of possible psychosis, but at the same time, the coma is more likely to kill them. So you're dealing with a really big contradiction here, and I don't think that the explanation is quite entirely earned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that a lot of times when moments like those compound, you start to question them, as you said. Whereas if you just let it kind of fly under the radar or present another vague reason for why they were in comas, then the reader might be like, okay, I buy that. But there's a lot of like exposition dump sometimes, and I think that that stems from his instinct to do math on the page, which I don't appreciate. Because everybody knows my feelings about math. No one knows my feelings about anything, but I'm telling you, I hate math. Um, so yeah, I mean, those moments cause my eyes to kind of glaze over, but at least there's less of that, I think, in this book compared to The Martian. So I'm still able to follow.
My equivalent for when my eyes glaze over that I know is not a universal experience, I know some people are totally excited, is when an author, not even just this author, but any author, like starts describing geometric shapes. Like, here's the view of the ship. It's a trapezoid connected to two sweeping, I'm like, I don't know, barrels, cornices. Like, I'm not picturing any of this whatsoever. Once we move past very simple shapes, I don't have like a little rotating graphic in my head. So I know that that came up for the alien ship that we see at the end. But that feels like a very minor quibble. And just because I think I've been pretty negative, I will announce a few things that I actually did like, and I think I disagree with both of you about, which is I think that the pacing is actually pretty good.
Oh, I don't have a problem with the pacing either. I think it's
Oh,
totally
good.
fine. Yeah, I think the pacing is fine. I just think that sometimes there is an issue with exposition dump, but other than that, I think that the pacing with this book was pretty good.
I wouldn't say that I have like a problem with the pacing. I just think it's like maybe a little drawn out. Like we read 7 chapters, and I think it could have been 5. You know, like there's a little bit of too much like navel gazing at sometimes. You know, like just like trying to figure stuff out that I could have been like just kind of compacted a little bit. But
You have no
like
idea what you're in store for.
it didn't bother me. It
It
didn't
all
bother
comes
me.
back to
Yeah.
math. It's because he has many pages of mathematical calculations. They add up to, probably maybe 2 chapters worth.
Is that a pun, Priya?
Did I make a pun?
They all add
That was
up.
that was entirely unintentional, but I'm so proud of myself now that you pointed it out.
I'm proud of you too. I'm also
Thank
super
you.
proud, no cap, of the way that you read the summary because hearing just the concepts explained in your prose, I'm like, oh, this is stately. This is grand. Like, I'm excited to hear what happens next. And it's so much different than reading Andy Weir and be like, oh, I don't like having a tube up my butt. Now I moved, and the tube up my butt moved. I'm like, oh my gosh. I don't. And so, like, hearing the actual concepts makes me very optimistic for how this story will be handled from other voices, like from an expert production studio and with a strong director and strong cast. I think the concepts are very, very strong. And like Dan said, the dimming of the sun, while it is a very like cataclysmic problem, there's something like very immediately chilling about like, I think I fell off that ladder wrong. I think that thing I dropped hit me too hard. And then using that to determine, oh, the gravity in this room is different. So it's this nice combination of actual obstacles and then like cliffhangers that keep the narrative moving.
Talking about like the coma thing, that getting back to it a little bit, like I like that, like it's just using like present technology rather than using some futuristic thing, like like in Remember Earth Past, like they have like the hibernation technology. They never really describe it. It's just like, oh, we can hibernate now, like, all right, I guess, like
Describe it.
that's sort of like a big leap. I mean, they kind of do, but like, I don't know, it's like a really big leap in technology to be able to do that, where like using a coma is really dangerous, and it's just like something that we could do already. Like I guess the robot, like moving them around and like using the electrodes to like pulse their muscles so they don't like atrophy is sort of kind of out there. But anyway, like I like that aspect, that it's like it didn't seem like really their future technology. Like it's all kind of it seems like within reason they'll be able to do something like this.
I mean, if they kind of just sped over the fact that you've just found this, I mean, how long did it take Cheng Xin to figure out how to move a ship at the speed of light? They just figured it out because they found some astrophage, and they're like, yep, we can use this, we can make it reproduce, and we can turn it into fuel. And all of this is going to happen in what seems like a very short amount of time for a major scientific discovery. And then a ship that you have to equip with like robotic, caretakers and so on. So I feel like if you're going to glaze over that stuff, you can glaze over a lot more things. I feel that's the only issue that I take with like the exposition dump. But I do feel like when it becomes like a major production, like a film production, they are going to make quick work of these kinds of things. I know you took issue with his with the probe, or like the thing that was in the tube in his butt. Sorry, not probe. The tube in his butt. Did you also take issue with the fact that he said multiple times that he clenched everything, including his butt, when he was like floating around in zero G? Because I did. And I'm hoping that Ryan Gosling's inner monologue does not tell us things like that.
Yeah.
Or like the description of how he's throwing up in space and zero
And then
G.
exactly, there's just like lots of very like not as extreme as body horror, but like weird, very juvenile potty humor that hopefully we can skip right on past, and you can have present technology or future technology for hibernation or comas. But Liu Cixin chose to speak, and not once, like several times, about the social implications of hibernation for people who entered it, for the society building it, and also for why people would choose to hibernate. Like Cheng Xin realizing that she's becoming idolized and put on this platform and deciding, like sort of with weary responsibility, that it's time for her to skip basically a lifetime. And that to me is just always going to be so much more interesting than like, let's get really, really specific into this fake technology that will include a lot of, sorry, I lost my way in that sentence. It's always more interesting to me than, I guess, this fascination with the natural processes of the human body, which like I'm sure happen to every fictional character in every novel. But I'm glad I don't have to read about every character's burp. Like, that's just not, come on, like we can do so much better.
Well, today, as I was reading his prose, I did determine that he sounds like a 15-year-old boy going on 45. So there is that. That is what his prose reads as to me. So, but at the same time, if I may say something positive for once, it's that he can do all of this and still create a very, very compelling story, because I feel like we've stopped here in the story just at the point where things get really good. So this first episode is kind of going to do away with like the setup and the beginning of the story and the stuff that orients us into this narrative, and then I feel like we're going to go in a much different direction from here on. So,
Don't give up on us yet, Bookstagram and
yeah,
Dan.
and yeah, it's going to get so good. And I feel like he manages to pull off something really, really, really cool, despite not being a masterful prose writer. Like, I wouldn't call him a prose writer. I would just say that he's the sort of guy who probably writes the way he thinks, you know?
Guy with interesting ideas. I do really appreciate that we get a confirmed alien life that is not anthropomorphic. Like that in itself just always gets a bit of a clap of little applause from me whenever an author can hypothesize an alien life that's not just like, you know, a basically human type with like physical attributes changed or very like shallow attributes changed. This is an entirely separate way of being, but we also get the acknowledgement that what's really more interesting to a reader is intelligent life. So we have this presumably non-intelligent astrophage, and then right at the end of part 1, this like confirmed intelligent alien. So a hat tip on that.
Which is really interesting that we're dealing with not one but 2 different forms of alien life. So
Dark forest theory confirmed. The world's full of aliens.
it always comes back to 3-body, doesn't it? Always.
Yeah, if anyone's new to this show for some reason, like get used to a lot of 3-body problems. But there's already been like 4 or 5 of them so far. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of references to it. Sorry.
Some spoilers to the position.
I don't know that we've recorded a single episode to date on any other book or show without referencing 3-body problems.
It's not
It's
possible.
like the ex-boyfriend that comes up and everything.
Yeah, it's not gonna be possible for us. That's I mean, for me, it's like I still think about those books. Wait, let's talk about this one now.
Oh, me
The
too.
one-
Me
It's the
too,
one that
Dan.
got away.
we'll just yeah. I'm sure a future season will just be us rereading them again, just because.
Stay tuned for the next 3 episodes, which will probably be about Hail Mary, unless we give up and go back.
Yeah. I did have one question for you guys around like, you know, because we watched the trailer together even. So and it struck me like the trailer is sort of like encompassing like this part, right? Is that like because the trailer ends with like the alien, maybe a little bit further because like it seems like they show like the alien a little bit later, but like it seemed like the trailer is like this part. Is that accurate? Do you think from your watching and reading of the book?
Yes.
Yes.
That is all I have to say.
Okay.
I think that
I agree with you.
now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking that like the entire, you know, first 7 chapters of this book could have just been a summary of the trailer.
Which is just a link to the YouTube
Yeah.
video.
Just put a link in the beginning of the book to the trailer and be like, all of that happened, and then now I'll tell you what else happens.
Because I think like when we all watched the trailer, like and I watched it, like even when I watched it when I first saw it like alone, it seemed like it was like giving up a little bit too. It was like a little bit going a little bit too far in the story. Like it seemed like maybe like they shouldn't have shown the aliens, and I think I still would contend that like I think the trailer shows a little bit too much. But I also have
I
no
agree.
foreknowledge. But
I
think
agree, but I think that about every trailer nowadays. So
Same.
yeah. But I think like if the trailer had shown like him being in space, you know, and like waking up and that, you know, and like the sort of interludes of him like, you know, realizing like why he was chosen or whatever. But the trailer also doesn't talk about the astrophage at all. I think if I'm I don't remember it being in there anyway. It only showed like the alien encounter at the very end of it. So I think like if they had just cut it off before then, it would have been better.
I think trailers are an absolute menace these days. I feel like they are revealing too much.
Society.
They are revealing too much plot, and sometimes like at the end of a trailer I'm like, well, I don't need to watch that movie anymore because I know exactly what happens from start to finish.
I just
And-
did. Yeah.
Yeah, I just watched it. Yep.
But knowing this story, do you feel like the trailer gives away too much? Like
I think so.
presumably there's a lot more. There's 3 more parts. So
We shouldn't say anything. You're very spoiler averse, right?
I don't want to know any plot points. I'm guessing like the story goes in like much different ways than the trailer is alluding to.
I think, okay, so when you ask the question of does it reveal too much, I think that when you're watching a trailer of a movie, it's not supposed to reveal something that happens like 7 chapters in and becomes like the crux of the whole story. Like that in itself is like a major spoiler. But beyond that, you don't know what's going to happen once he encounters the alien now. So or what the alien is even. I don't remember now how much of the alien the trailer even showed, but like you don't know where the story is going from this moment onwards. And in my head, this is where the story truly begins. So so yeah, make of that what you will.
I think the thing that was like a little bit probably like, I mean, regardless of the fact that they like that the aliens like were known to be there, right? Like that's like a known thing now. There's gonna be aliens. I think like the fact that like he's like interacting with them, like he's like giving. I remember he was getting like a thumbs up or whatever, and like trying to do that. Like
Yeah,
it kind of shows that they're friendly or at least like not super
exactly.
hostile. So like you kind of know
Yeah, he
like kind
eats
of
him in the next chapter. He eats the main character, and that's how the next
Could be
chapter ends.
misdirection. It could be
yeah.
misdirection. You never know.
Yeah, it could be like subverting expectations, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, at least
Ilyuka's actually the star. She comes back to life.
at least initially, like they're not super hostile, right? So like you kind of know the initial disposition, or at least like the way they're tricking him.
Disposition.
Yeah.
I think that the entire trailer should have been him waking up and then slowly realizing he's on a spaceship by seeing the star, and then realizing to his like excitement or horror that the star that he sees is not the sun. And that's enough.
Is
Yeah,
that
it
even
is
is that too
actually.
much? Is that too
That's
much though?
plenty.
How about we
That's
stop having
plenty.
trailers? How about we just tell people to go watch movies?
Yeah.
Wow, revolutionary. I mean, I'm down.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's just like a fact that like it's so hard to get people to go to the theater these days that they feel like, well, we need to people need to know there's aliens in there, so like let's put that in there at least. And they're fun aliens. They do hands up motions or thumbs up motions, or they try to. So I don't know. Maybe that's the reasoning there.
We can only guess.
So another thing I want to talk about is, but when we were discussing this book, I think Priya, you'd said that like the audiobook is really good. I kind of want to
Yes.
get a sense from you, like why the audio. I hadn't listened to it. I'm just reading it, but I would kind of get a sense from you, like why you think it's so good, and like and you think it's better than other audiobooks, right?
Yes. So I'm notoriously bad at listening to audiobooks because I tend to lose focus very, very easily. But this book is a unique scenario where I often lose focus while looking at the page because, like I said, and I will keep saying, there is math on the page. So I'd rather like a voice in my head just reads the math off to me because so then like I know when to tune out when I start hearing numbers, and then I know when to tune back in when I hear more words than numbers. So it works kind of in the reverse direction for me with this particular audiobook. I think that the narrator does a really, really good job. And I do believe that there is a certain graphic element to it that gets introduced. So there will be like some auditory effects at some point, though they are not in the earlier chapters, I think. Um, but
Mhm.
But we were, Talia and I were also talking about how the experience of this book is quite different when you hear it versus when you read it because the prose is not very literary. So it's written more like a guy just having an internal monologue with himself. So he's not concerned with being eloquent. He's just concerned with figuring stuff out. So if someone is reading it to you in the correct tone, which the narrator very much is, it sounds like a guy talking to you versus when you're reading it on the page, you're like, okay, well, all of these sentences that start with anyway are like, they read kind of juvenile, but then if it's being read to you, it reads very differently. So, this book is one where you might want to switch it up. I love immersive reading, which is that you do both. When you're kind of out and about, plug the audiobook in. And then when you're at home and you want to have text in front of your eyes, you can either have just the text, or you can also have the audiobook in your ears and the text in front of you if it's harder to focus on either or. I do that sometimes. I mean, of course, it makes for slower reading, but it's a more immersive experience, in my opinion. But that's what I'm doing this time around with my read. I'm doing both. So, I found that I'm absorbing more that way.
Priya, I had my microphone off in the first half of what you were saying because I was howling with laughter at your just statements. Math on the page, I stop listening. Math on the page, I stop paying attention. And then when a voice tells me the math is over, I'm back. Just like, hysterically laughing at that. That being said, I love the term you used. I've already forgotten it, but immersive reading, maybe?
Yes, that's
This
the
is
one.
your Bookstagram expert knowledge. Perfect.
Yeah, I did that a lot actually when I was reading over the past year. I read The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, which is an epic fantasy series. If we ever decide to go off sci-fi and into fantasy, I'm going to start plugging this book to you guys. This series takes a very long time to read, but these are books that are meant to be read slowly. And then I was doing immersive reading with that, and I realized that there's a lot to be gained from that experience. So I try to bring it into more books, especially if I'm doing a reread. So yeah.
So is the narrator, it's like, is it more like a dramatic reading? Like, is that why it's more engaging?
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So he like acts out the stuff, and because like I've listened to a lot of audiobooks and it's sort of just monotone, it's like they kind of just drone on. Like the
This is
foundation
more
one
like
was
voice
really
acting.
bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
This is
this
voice
is voice
acting.
acting. This is a full performance. And I will say that the reason I am familiar with this book is because someone shared their Audible credentials with me. Shout out to my former roommate, because they were so insistent that I hear the audiobook version of this novel.
Yeah, it's definitely it definitely makes the experience a lot more enjoyable. The first time that I read it, I was on a road trip, and my husband just put the audiobook on, and I was like, normally like an hour in or so, I normally tune out, but like that's when it starts to like really get better and better and better. So I was like super immersed and enjoying it, but I have a terrible memory. So like I feel like I forgot most of it by this point, like years later. So I do kind of feel like I'm reading it for the first time, even though like I know the major like plot developments, but still I'm enjoying the reread just as much as a first time read, I feel.
We should mention the audiobook narrator is Ray Porter. Maybe I can link to a Reddit thread of people gushing over his writing, but or his performance. But it's safe to say that people have a strong attachment to the narrative style of Ray Porter, reading like someone's thinking.
Yeah, it's really well done. And I think that a lot of people that I've met through the bookgram space have very busy lives and are always on the lookout for an audiobook that they can plug in while they're at work or, during their commutes and stuff. So it kind of makes sense to push out as many recommendations for really good audiobooks as I can, because I'm always looking for those too, as someone who has trouble focusing.
Cool. Well, was there anything else plot wise you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, the references to the alien spaceship. I will say it was really hard for me to handle all the geometric terms, but the one thing that or the few things that we pieced together for sure is that it's much larger than any Earth ship and constructed with panels that are very difficult to pressurize, and the container that's sent over is like hot and has a smell of ammonia. So it's established as foreign enough from anything that Earth would have built. And we'll see. I'm interested again. The way that Priya writes and summarizes makes me more excited for this book. Oh, there are some elements that it might be interesting to hear rather than just read.
Okay, there are two things that I want to talk about. Going back to the beginning, where we were talking about the reluctant person who gets thrust into this situation. And they're always someone who kind of like you question, like, do they really have the credentials to be doing this? I was recently watching or rewatching the movie Arrival. Do you have either of you seen that?
Yep.
I love that movie. Yeah.
You've both seen it? Okay, so
Yep.
Arrival deals with a similar scenario where there's not even a scientist, there's a linguist who's brought into an unlikely scientific scenario. And it's also somebody like kind of just plucked out of their life and thrust into a situation that they really have maybe not the best credentials for, but they're really, really good at something very, very niche, and that puts them in that situation. But then they end up being like the best person for the job, and that's kind of what happens to him. And I feel like there's a balance to be struck with this, right? That okay, he once wrote a paper about something that ends up being relevant to this research that they're doing on astrophage, but then at the same time, with the whole setup that they did with the coma inducing, and then how, the person's genetics have to match for that, for coma resistance. And he also happens to be resistant to comas. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, these are the little nitpicky things that I would take issue with, because I love the trope of the unlikely person in this scenario, but then I'm like, okay, but then you're going to add another layer of unlikeliness by telling us he's also coma resistant. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? Like that dual layer of like, he's the least likely person, but then he's also the best person. And then also he has this extra thing.
I mean, I'll say that it didn't bother me that much. I mean, like, yeah, like I definitely like recognized that it seems a little too convenient, that like that all these things are happening to line up. But like, I don't know. I guess I'm willing enough to suspend the disbelief and just like follow along in the story. And I think his personality was engaging enough. Like the main character's like personality and like just the way he kind of like talked through stuff that it didn't bother me, I guess.
He's charismatic enough for this mission, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Charismatic
Mhm.
is a good word for what he is. Like he just seems like a cool guy. Like not cool guy, but like seems like an interesting guy. Like he's not like too full of himself, but he's also like has the intelligence to like be believable enough to be on this mission, like, and he has the background for it. And so like it didn't bother me that like, yeah, maybe it's a little bit too convenient, but it's also a story. And it's like, I think it's okay.
Yes, I think I can forgive some of those things.
He's cool in the way that all nerds are.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's what we all aspire to be. It's like, oh yeah, they should pick me to go into space. That'd be awesome.
It might be relevant to mention that the author, who is totally not the main character of all of his books, did attend university but did not graduate, and then went on to write male protagonists who are disillusioned from their academia but are actually the best people all along. In fact, the best in many, many ways.
What a coincidence. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like being 1 in 70,000 for a coma-resistant gene.
Authors never put themselves in stories. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's some issues I will take with the narrative style of the author in future books that I will say are reminiscent of the dream angel wife of Luoji. So that's
I knew you were gonna
difficult.
say that. I knew you were gonna bring that up.
Yeah, that's difficult. But nothing else to say about the plot that we've experienced so far. But it does make me feel like Andy Weir is only really able to write male protagonists, and he's written a female protagonist in the book Artemis, and it's pretty unreadable. It is written like what an extremely out of touch older man thinks like an inner teenage woman's inner thoughts are like.
Oh,
And it comes off as
that doesn't sound good.
big yikes. But he does quirky. But he does write women like they're aliens and writes aliens like they're dudes and bros.
Well, I mean, if the way he's writing Strat is anything to go
Exactly.
by, she's kind of a robot, so
The aliens that he
Yeah.
writes, which he also will like indicate as male, come off as like normal natural characters. And the women that he writes are like clunky caricatures dropped in from outer space.
Which is so funny, actually, because there's this whole thing, this whole saying about men written by women are always better. And usually women written by men are not. But I have examples of a few male authors who write women really, really well, Sanderson being one of them. But especially in the realm of sci-fi, I feel like this is quite lacking because we saw this when we were reading Hyperion, right? I think that there was a problem with the way he wrote women in that book. And then what else? What other book? I think Foundation had this problem as well at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Foundation, I feel like the show had to take liberties and present and create female characters for the audience because
And
Isaac
people
Asimov
were
did not do enough of that.
people were really mad about it too, like all the gender swapping or whatever. Like people are
Yeah.
dumb, but yeah. Yeah, I was like, as you were talking, I was like trying to think of like, has there been any good female representation in any of the books that we've done for this show? And like, yeah, I was thinking like maybe Beta. Beta was pretty good in Foundation, like
Already forgot
or
her.
Arcady. Arcady was pretty good
Katie,
too.
I liked Arcady. Maybe
Yeah,
I think when girlhood is introduced, there's a lot of flexibility and humanity introduced, but when womanhood is introduced, that's when alienation seems to creep in.
A whole can of worms.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess I like Tung Ching's character in general, but not because of her personality, just because of like the the aspect that that she represents in
What
this
she
in this
represents.
story. And like, but like none of his male characters are any better really. So like
Oh
it's
It's
yeah.
yeah,
what they represent.
He doesn't do good character work. That's the fascinating thing with Liu Cixin. He didn't do great character work, and I am a very character driven reader, but
yeah.
that's one of the best things I've ever read at the same time. So there are at times these books that kind of really bend my understanding of what I even like, you know? And this Project Hail Mary actually is bringing it back to the book we were talking about. Um, Project Hail Mary is one of those books that bends my expectations of what I enjoy. And because normally I'm also a very prose driven reader, and we already talked about how we feel about the prose in this book, and yet I really enjoy it. So there we go.
Way to know thyself, Priya. Very, very true.
Or not know thyself.
All right, well, should we wrap it up there, I guess?
Yeah, that's as good as episode 1 is. I think we can muster.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. Please check out rehydrate.space for release episodes, reading lists, and all the other stuff they put up there, including the breakdown for this book that we'll be following. And leave comments by emailing us at rehydrate@fastmail.com and on Mastodon at rehydrate@mast.to. And we also have a Blue Sky account that I can't remember the name of, but it's linked on the rehydrate.space. And we'll see you next time.